Welcome back to the Making the Madness YouTube channel. This is Jonathan here, and today what I'm going to be doing is breaking down the top 10/11 candidates for National Player of the Year. Going to be going in reverse order, so starting with two players who are at number 10, and then going all the way down to number 1. We're going to start this list out with David Roddy. At number 10, he is alongside Colin Gillespie, so doing two number 10s. I felt both players deserve to be on this list. We'll start out with Roddy, though. He is averaging 20.9 points per game, 7.8 rebounds, and is doing so on a undefeated Colorado State team. I get it, Colorado State, they've only played 9 games, haven't played the toughest schedule in the world, although they did just beat St. Mary's earlier this weekend. But he's putting up fantastic numbers. He's carrying this team to that undefeated record, and one of the reasons why Colorado State deserves to be ranked is because of David Roddy. So he comes in at number 10 alongside Colin Gillespie. So Gillespie, he's only averaging 17.5 points per game this season, 3.5 assists, but he's just been such a valuable player for this Villanova program, not only this year, but throughout his entire, I guess now 5-year college career. 9 games this year, obviously having a solid season, has Villanova in the top 10 of the polls. He's going to be right there, be an All-American candidate. Maybe not win National Player of the Year, but he certainly, I think, deserves to be on the National Player of the Year watch list, which is what this is. Next up on the list, it is Keegan Murray, who has gotten off to a fantastic start this season. 23.9 points per game, 8 rebounds per game, is doing it all for this Iowa team, and this is an Iowa team that has certainly gotten off to a great start. At the time of this video recording, they still have yet to play Iowa State. Did just lose to Illinois, just lost to Purdue. So a couple early season losses after a really good start to the season for this Iowa team, but they're still a team that's going to be NCAA tournament bound. It's just another thing. I think the thing with him, kind of like Trace Jackson Davis, this is probably a team that isn't going to stay in the top 25 the entire season. That's going to hurt his National Player of the Year case. But at the same extent, he's having a good season. Certainly deserves to be on the top 10 of this list. Next up, we have Jonathon Davis, who's had a fantastic season for this Wisconsin team. 20.5 points per game, 6 rebounds per game, has really taken over this Wisconsin team. And this is a Wisconsin team that I think has surprised everyone. Really good start through 8 games this season. And the Badgers, they win the Maui Invitational. That was certainly a big moment for Davis. It was a big moment for this Wisconsin program, and kind of has this Wisconsin team, on the right track for success. So Davis having this type of start, after coming off the bench for much of last season is certainly, something, we expected him to have a breakout season. Not to this extent, has been fantastic. So Jonathon Davis, certainly deserving of a spot on this list. Next up, we have Shackleford. He's averaging 19.3 points per game, 6.5 rebounds per game. He's getting down and grabbing rebounds, doing something that's very valuable for this team. Shooting 43%. Had the big game, of course, against Gonzaga that kind of broke him into kind of this National Player of the Year debate. Certainly a fantastic start for Shackleford. We'll see how this picks up, but for an Alabama team that looks to be a national title contender, he's certainly the reason why, because he has stepped up his game even more than last year, where he was still leading the team in scoring, an all-SEC player, and he's even better this year. So Shackleford certainly warranted in terms of being on this list. Next up, we have Lydell, who is doing fantastic things for a good Ohio State team. 19.5 points per game, 7 rebounds per game. He's stepped out his game. He's shooting the ball a little bit more than what he did a season ago. He had the big dagger against Duke, made the kind of fadeaway jumper from the foul line that beat Duke. Certainly performed in some of the biggest games of this season for this Ohio State team. And this is an Ohio State team that, without Lydell, probably isn't looking at the record they have now, probably has a few more losses. Certainly don't win the Duke game without him. Probably not beating Seton Hall without him. So this is an Ohio State team, probably loses a few more games. Without EJ Lydell. He's certainly been valuable and worthy of the number 6 spot. Next up, we have Jaden Ivey, who has been really good this season for a Purdue team that looks to be the current favorite to win the national championship, current number 1 ranking. Ivey's been fantastic. He has taken the breakout that we all expected, and maybe even to a greater extent. He's averaging 15.9 points per game, 3.5 assists, 5.5 rebounds. He's just a stat sheet stuffer. He's shooting 40% from 3. He's up to his free throw shooting. He's up to his field goal percentage. His shooting was something that kind of held him back a season ago from being a potential all freshman nationally. But he's taken a step forward with the shooting percentages, has worked on his jump shot. He's still an athletic freak, gets to the rim. Reminds me a lot of watching like John Morant, just his freak athletic nature. So Jaden Ivey certainly warranted of a top 5 spot on this list. Coming in at number 4, it is Paolo Banchero, who right now would be the heavy favorite to win National Freshman of the Year. Banchero's been fantastic this season, 17.8 points per game, 7.5 rebounds per game. He's shooting the ball from the perimeter. He's scoring inside, very efficient scoring. Banchero just kind of does it all. He can run offensive sets for you. He can rebound. He can defend. I think the role he is playing at the kind of 4 position next to Mark Williams, next to Theo John, has certainly been beneficial for him. I do think like the one reason he's not kind of higher on this list and maybe at number 3, number 2, maybe even number 1 is I do think like his teammates kind of help him, a little bit because, Wendell Moore has taken a big step forward. Trevor Keels is a good scorer. Mark Williams helps him inside. So I think the combination of just having a better team around him is why I'm not sure he's going to be able to win the award, but certainly pretty sure he's going to end up being a first-team All-American and the freshman of the year in the college basketball this season. Next up, we have Ocha Obaji, who has taken a major step forward from a season ago. Has just kind of been a consistent role player, and this year he has turned himself into being a star. He's averaging 22.5 points per game, shooting 45% from 3, 76% from the line. His shooting percentage has gone way up from a season ago. That's huge for this Kansas team because they kind of needed a go-to scorer coming into the season. Many thought Remy Martin, David McCormick. It's been Obaji who's taken that step forward, and he's looking like a potential first-team All-American this season. We'll see how it kind of holds up. Kansas certainly, I think, is a pretty clear at least top 10. I'd say at the end of the day, they'll be one of the 1 seeds. They'll win the Big 12, and Obaji will be a major contributor to that. So Ocha Obaji comes in at number 3. Coming in at number 2, it is Drew Timme, who was the preseason favorite to win National Player of the Year. I still think he has a good shot to win the award. I'd say besides the number 1 player who we'll get to in a second, Timme has as good of a shot as anyone, averaging 18 points a game, 6.5 rebounds. He was really scoring efficiently inside, had the huge game against Texas. He needs to be a little bit more assertive for this Gonzaga team. I thought in the Alabama game he wasn't quite assertive enough. He didn't have a good game against Duke. They kind of walled him up and defended him really well. So those are 2 kind of games where he necessarily didn't have a great game, but he has a chance to once again kind of reestablish himself. I think seeing these first few games, seeing Gonzaga kind of struggle a little bit could be good for him because now he needs to, I think, and he will do this. I think he's going to start taking a more aggressive approach, trying to score a little bit more, and that's good for his National Player of the Year candidacy. I think it's also good for Gonzaga, who doesn't necessarily have a fantastic scorer outside of Timme. I think Timmy's going to take a step forward, and throughout the season, he will be on the National Player of the Year watch list. And coming in at number 1, it is Kofi Coburn. He is having a fantastic start to the season, did get the 3-game suspension, struggled in his first game against Cincinnati, but has been fantastic since. This season, he's averaging 22.8 points per game, 11.8 rebounds per game. He's even, passing the ball a little bit more, has found these open shooters, which is kind of the big part of his game. He's taken a big step forward defensively. I think, not quite blocking as many shots as he did the previous couple years, but he's still making an impact on the defensive end of the basketball. But yeah, he's been fantastic. If he continues to put up the statistics that he is, which at this rate, he's unguardable. He's just too big, too physical. I guess maybe Zach Edey might be able to guard him, but that's about it because he's going to overpower players just with his size, his strength, his athleticism. And I think Kofi Coburn at this point in the season has to be considered the National Player of the Year favorite. Thanks again for watching Making the Madness on YouTube. We'll be back with some more videos throughout the season, break down the National Player of the Year race, a few other things, so stay tuned.